Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking on a very specific mission.
Wow.
We are cracking open Pedro Malha's book, The Ghosts Manifesto, Memory, Presence, and Knowing Who You Are.
And this isn't just a review. This is meant to be a comprehensive, an organized summary of the entire work.
Right.
It's designed for you, the listener, who maybe doesn't have the time to sit with all 29 chapters, or who, just needs a structured conversational path to absorb these ideas.
That's it exactly. Think of this as your fast track method.
Yeah.
We are going to treat this deep dive like a complete guided tour. We're starting with the dedication and we're going all the way to the final note.
And the goal is thorough absorption of those key concepts: memory, presence, identity, as Mala defines them.
But delivered conversationally, so you can grasp the full weight of this approach without getting lost in what can be a pretty dense text.
And it's important to say we are following his structure precisely. We want to show you the logical flow of his argument, from that really personal foundation all the way up to the universal application.
So we'll begin immediately where the book does. With the foundational ground of the dedication and the preface, Malha dedicates the book to his mama.
And he states she's no longer physically present.
Right, and this dedication isn't just a formality, is it? It immediately sets the tone for the entire Ghosts movement.
No, it's not a formality at all. I mean, the dedication itself is the perfect lived example of the movement's thesis. He isn't talking about a static memory.
He's detailing her continuing influence.
Exactly. He speaks of her unwavering belief, her joy in small things, that unshakable loyalty, and her courage. And these attributes, they're not just things she did, they're things she left.
He really highlights that the memory he carries isn't just of her love, but of her way of living. How she met uncertainty, and how her presence made the ordinary feel extraordinary.
It's an inheritance of behavior, not just anecdote. And that's the first powerful nugget for you, listening. Memory is a living inheritance. Mala emphasizes she is so alive in the echoes and the mannerisms of her family, the way her grandchildren laugh.
He says she is part of the ground I stand on. That reframes absence completely.
It does. It's not just recognizing she was here. It's experiencing her continuing active influence right now. Absence does not mean disappearance.
So moving into the preface, how this work came to be, he grounds the ideas. He makes it clear the book didn't just spring from, academic theory.
No, it originated from the simple yet really profound act of noticing.
Noticing what, exactly?
Small, weighty moments that everyone else might just overlook. A familiar, repeated gesture, a phrase you haven't heard in years that just pops up.
Or that distinct feeling when a place has changed, but it still feels like home.
Yes. The core ideas are rooted in lived experience. The rhythms of family, noise, fatigue, uncertainty, not in some quiet retreat from the world.
And I think we should highlight a structural choice he made, which he mentions right there in the preface. The origin story, his really personal journey.
He puts it at the very back of the book.
Which is so interesting. Why?
Well, that choice is key to understanding the manifesto's intention. By putting the personal stuff at the end, he prioritizes the concepts first.
So it's like he's saying, here are the universal principles
Of how memory and presence operate. Now, here's the context of how I discovered them. It ensures the ideas resonate universally before they get anchored in just one person's life.
Okay, so now we step into the introduction, beginning the conversation, and he's immediately setting some very clear boundaries.
He is. He's very careful to tell us what this book is not.
It's not a manual, not a method, not an instruction set designed to fix you.
It is explicitly a companion. It moves at the pace of a conversation, respecting pauses and uncertainty.
That immediately releases the pressure, doesn't it? The pressure to, achieve some rapid transformation.
Absolutely. It's an invitation to recognize, not an instruction to transform.
So let's define it. What is the Ghosts movement?
At its core, it's a way of living that treats memory as a living presence woven through everything. The body, the land, the senses, just ordinary life.
And it treats past, present, and future as companions that all coexist.
Right. And this is where his definition of presence gets radical. Traditional presence, often requires stillness, quiet.
Getting away from it all.
Mala argues his presence lives in the clatter of a family kitchen, the city hum, the noise of kids, the simple touch of a worn chair.
It's a presence that's defined by its ability to hold uncertainty and loss within it, rather than pushing those things away.
Exactly. And the introduction gives us an overview of the compass of memory, those 4 bearings.
Backward, forward, inward, and outward.
And these are not rigid boxes. They're just ways of noticing where your attention is resting in any given moment. It's just memory is this dynamic network spread through time and space.
Which naturally leads to the meaning of ghosts in the title. I mean, that's a loaded word.
It is, but he's very clear. These ghosts are the traces of what matters, things that are still here, still active, even when the original form is gone.
Like a photograph or a worn path in the carpet.
Or an inherited gesture you don't even realize you have. They prove that absence does not mean disappearance. They're the shape of what remains.
And the key insight that wraps up the intro is this powerful idea that light and shadow are partners.
And this is a crucial philosophical underpinning. They're not moral labels of good and bad. They're just natural contrasts that give presence its texture.
So the movement is about recognition and acceptance of what's already here.
Knowing that joy is sharper when loss is known, and that light makes pain bearable. It offers permission to remain incomplete, rather than always striving for closure.
Okay, so let's move into the main body of the work. Chapter 1, Memory as a Ritual of Presence. This immediately shifts memory from something that's just in your head.
To an active, embodied engagement, yes.
Yeah.
Memory, for Malha, is a living presence. It's not a static file you pull up. It's active, it moves, it shifts.
And central to this chapter are the rituals of presence. How does he define those?
They're repeated acts, carried out with care, that bind you to something that matters. And crucially, they don't need to be invented or mystical. They're often already in your life, you just haven't named them.
Can you give an example?
Sure. A ritual could be keeping a specific, worn photograph in view on your desk, or taking a yearly walk down a certain street.
Or cooking a family recipe, not just for the food, but for the rhythm of it.
Exactly. Those actions form a living bridge between past and present. When you return to a memory through conscious action, not just thought, you're participating in keeping it alive.
And that emphasizes embodiment. Mala argues memory lives in the body itself.
And the way you run your fingers along a book spine or how your pace changes on a meaningful route, the senses are doorways. A scent, a sound. It can transport you instantly.
So chapter 2 takes us back to the compass of memory, and this is where it gets really practical.
Yes, this is where you learn how to use the compass for self-orientation, which is essential if you're feeling, pulled in a million directions.
Let's look at the first bearing, backward. This is our ancestry, our personal history, the habits that give us stability.
But every direction has a risk, and that's where the balance comes in. The risk of backward is getting trapped in the weight of what's known.
So it makes change feel unsafe.
Right. And physically, he says, this can show up as posture that draws the shoulders forward, like you're carrying the past like a coat.
Then there's the forward bearing, the not yet.
Felt as anticipatory love or ache or just a quiet responsibility. It's what makes you act with care now because you're thinking about the future.
But the risk there is that the present becomes thin, just a means to an end.
And you might notice yourself physically leaning forward, unable to just settle into a chair.
The inward bearing is the body's own archive. Posture, breath, unspoken strain.
This one is meant to be an instant grounding return to presence, but the risk is serious.
What's that?
Unresolved strain or trauma gets carried for years. It shows up as chronic tension, a tight jaw, shallow breathing. You can mistake that tension for your natural state.
And finally, outward. Memory held in the surrounding field. Streets, landscapes, objects.
This gives you a sense of belonging, but if you ignore it, the risk is feeling fundamentally untethered.
So the compass isn't about control, it's about sensing.
It's about orientation. Noticing when one direction is dominating so you can consciously adjust and rebalance.
Chapter 3 expands on this with place as archive. So if our bodies are an archive, the world around us is too.
Every single place holds history. You can sense it in the weight of the air, the quality of light, or just a subtle shift in your body when you enter a specific space.
And he says the land preserves these traces in a non-tidy, overlapping way.
Which is key. A single spot might hold memories from centuries apart, all pressed together without clear boundaries.
How is memory stored in a place? He gives 3 ways.
First, physical remnants, like ruins or worn steps. Second, changes in form, like a dip in the earth where a building used to be. And third, atmospheric residue.
That felt heaviness or lightness you can't explain.
Exactly. Which leads to the body-land dialogue. Your body is always in conversation with the land, shifting posture and breath in response to cues you might not even consciously register.
And that brings us to chapter 4, The Body Remembers, zooming right in on that internal archive.
He emphasizes the body is the most immediate, unbroken archive we carry. It's in the tilt of your shoulders, the depth of your breath, your scars.
And he details 4 distinct layers of memory stored there.
Right. There's the physical layer from injury or work, the emotional layer, like a compressed rib cage from loss, the relational layer, learned from touch or distance in childhood.
And then the most intriguing one, the inherited layer, epigenetics.
Ancestral memory, responses to stress, potentially archived in our very tissue. This isn't just about bad posture. It's a multi-generational biography written on our physical cells.
Wow, and the result of seeing it that way is you can reframe the body.
Your scars, your tilts, they aren't flaws to be erased. They're an honest record of survival. Text in your biography.
So breath and gesture are essential. They're record keepers.
Your breath carries imprints. Gestures are physical echoes. The body tells its history without ever needing a single word.
Okay, we're transitioning now to how we move through time and change, starting with Chapter 5, Transitions and Thresholds.
These are the crossings in life, the meeting place of what has been and what is to come, a physical doorway, a new job, any major change.
And Mala argues that these physical thresholds carry immense emotional force.
Your body shifts before your conscious mind even acknowledges the change. Think about the way your breath changes the second you step into a hospital.
Or how your shoulders might tense up when you pass the house you grew up in.
Exactly. And once crossed, a threshold alters you. It lives in you permanently, recalled by a scent or a sound. It's a shift that can't be undone.
In Chapter 6, we look at sound as archive. This is a beautiful idea.
It is. The key is sound's persistence. It's brief in the air, but it's long in the body.
The tone of a loved one's voice, the tick of an old clock.
They're direct roots through time, felt emotionally before they're even processed cognitively.
And he says both noise and silence hold meaning.
Listening is an active ritual. Even silence is charged. The pause after a truth is spoken, the hush after snow.
And the body is a resonator. Sound alters your breath, your posture.
And it carries echoes long after the sound is gone. A parent's voice settling a child, or a song changing the way you walk.
Chapter 7 addresses light and shadow, and this is core to the whole philosophy. He defines them not as opposites,
but as partners. They provide the necessary contrast that gives presence its shape and texture.
They create depth and meaning. Joy is only vivid because loss is known.
Shadow defines the edge of light. Light makes pain bearable. True presence, he insists, lives in that meeting point between the two, not just in the light.
And this meeting point is physical. Light feels like expansion, shadow like contraction.
Trying to live only in expansion is just exhausting and unrealistic.
Which brings us to Chapter 8, Walking with Darkness.
Here, darkness is understood as a landscape of rupture and loss, not just an absence. It's not an enemy to be banished, but a terrain to be recognized.
And this leads to a concept we need to slow down on, sacred weight.
Mala suggests that some parts of darkness, the memory of a loved one, the truth of something that can't be restored, are meant to be carried, not lifted away.
That weight is sacred because it keeps us close to what matters.
Right. And embodied darkness is felt tangibly, as heaviness, thickened air, a deep tiredness that slows every step. It asks for slowness, honesty, and humility.
So Chapter 9 offers the counterpoint, walking with light.
But this is a specific kind of light, companionate light. It's quiet, steady, and it doesn't deny the shadow. It holds darkness in view.
Which allows for joy without denial.
A joy that deepens connection because it honors the reality of loss, rather than dishonoring it. It's noticed and received, not manufactured.
And the physical manifestation of this is a loosening of the shoulders, a deepening breath.
It's an honest joy that carries memory, and it builds trust in its eventual return.
And finally, in this section, we reach Chapter 10, The Dot. This is maybe the most profound concept.
It's the still ground. The point of origin beneath every memory, every role, every story. The steady, unchanging presence that remains when everything else shifts.
And it's interesting how he frames it. It's not something you create.
No, it's already here, in every pause, every breath. It's the natural baseline, available in both stillness and noise.
So you can find it while you're washing dishes?
Or walking through a busy park. Living from the dot means allowing emotions to move through you without lodging. It roots you in what is real, not what you're trying to fix.
We turn now to the reality of the incomplete. Chapter 11 is the weight of unfinished things.
These fragments, unsent letters, unresolved wounds, are the ghosts of the incomplete. And he's clear. They're living ties, not failures.
This is where he brings in the psychological concept of the Zeigarnik effect.
Right. In simple terms, it's why your mind holds on to incomplete tasks more vividly than completed ones. It's why you can't stop thinking about that email you haven't sent.
He says the challenge is carrying this weight without getting stuck beneath it.
And the physical residue is often the body holding itself in readiness. Raised shoulders, restlessness, waiting for a moment that never arrives.
So living with these open threads requires acceptance.
And naming what's unfinished, and using ritual like writing that unsent letter and never sending it to create a personal sense of ending, which can release that physical tension.
Chapter 12 takes us to before the beginning, the unformed presence.
It's that state just before something begins. The pause before the first note of a song, the stillness before someone walks through the door. It's not absence, it's a gathering.
And the body's anticipation is highly sensitive to this.
You feel it in the breath you take before answering a tough question. The body knows the difference between what is and what's about to be.
The call here is to honor the before. Don't rush past it.
Let it be itself. It's the bedrock under the structures we inhabit.
In Chapter 13, we look at seasonal presence, moving away from linear time.
Acknowledging circular time. Each return to spring or autumn mixes familiarity and change. Seasons are natural thresholds that echo within us.
This governs our embodied rhythms, our energy, mood, memories. They emerge and retreat with the year's turns.
Even in our modern climate-controlled spaces, seasonal cues, the first frost, the smell of rain act as anchors of the year. They bring memories uninvited, blending past and now.
Chapter 14 brings us to the still point, which is defined as rest as knowing.
A quiet that doesn't depend on external silence, but on the settling within. A pause that carries weight without heaviness.
He calls it active attentiveness. It's not retreat, but arriving fully where you are.
And true knowing arises not from frenetic thinking, but from letting the moment remain whole without interference.
We access this through simple physical doorways. Settling your weight on your feet, a slow stirring of tea, softening your jaw.
Sound can even be a doorway. Letting sounds pass through you without catching on them, just allowing the background noise to be.
Okay, now we address the messy reality of life. Starting with Chapter 15, fracture without repair.
This tackles the really difficult truth that some breaks never close, and that's okay.
He calls it the wholeness of the broken. Scars, unbridged silences. They're not flaws, they're part of our enduring shape.
Wholeness, in his view, is the acceptance of everything that shapes us, including what's unresolved.
This requires resisting erasure, actively refusing that pressure to make everything seamless and healed.
A scar speaks of injury survived. A guarded movement tells the story of old wounds. They are texts of survival, not shame.
So integration is about removing the urgency to resolve.
Exactly. Allowing broken parts to travel forward with you as part of the whole, rather than holding them back in a state of constant expected repair.
Chapter 16 is a necessary counterbalance: family, noise, and shared presence.
It validates the idea that presence in the clatter is possible. It exists in busy, noisy, interrupted spaces. Interruptions aren't obstacles, they're part of its shape.
And shared rhythms, the sound of a kettle, familiar footsteps, become markers of belonging.
They form the trustworthy background against which new memory is made.
And shared presence is about recognizing those quiet, unspoken acts of care. A glance across a table, putting a cup of tea in front of someone without asking.
Which leads beautifully into Chapter 17, the sacredness of the everyday. Mala insists that ritual lives in mundane acts.
Washing dishes, folding laundry, making a bed.
These activities hold the necessary repetitive shape of life. And the core insight is that sacredness comes from the attention you infuse into the act, not from ceremony.
Repetition, when done with care, makes them anchors.
And we return to embodiment here. Muscle memory stores how we hold a mug, linking today to generations past who perform the exact same tasks.
Chapter 18 covers ritual without ceremony. These are the private markers hiding in plain sight.
Touching a door frame before you leave, standing in a window for a few minutes each morning. No witness, no script.
Their key feature is portability. They can travel and survive disruption, providing stability anywhere.
And they're bound to sensory anchors, the warmth of water, the scent of a cupboard, working quietly without demanding explanation.
Chapter 19 details memory circles, a practical application of these ideas.
This is about shared witness, a small gathering where memory can just rest in the center without demands for resolution.
And the core principles are strict. Consent silence is always welcome, equality, and witness without judgment.
No pressure to make sense of what's carried, The impact is that it creates a sense that your memory has a rightful place in the world, which can foster a real physical sense of safety.
Chapter 20, Alone Together, defines quiet intimacy.
Connection built on the absence of demand. Sharing a bench without speaking. Walking silently with a friend.
It's the paradox of belonging. The ability to remain whole and keep your own shape while standing alongside others.
It's about restoring trust, that the connection is steady even in silence. Your body recognizes it's safe not to fill the space.
Chapter 21 brings us back to anchors in daily life. These are the points of return.
Objects, places, gestures that keep us steady. A stone in your pocket, a worn chair. They aren't just receptacles for memory, they actively participate in it.
And their strength is sensory engagement. The weight of the stone, the creak of the chair, they engage the senses before thought.
They're not about control, but connection. And they can hold difficult feelings, providing a steady point from which emotion can move without overwhelming you.
Chapter 22 looks at work and labor as presence.
Work is seen as an archive where memory and presence gather. The rhythm of kneading bread connects us to a human lineage of effort.
And work leaves physical traces on the body. A gardener's hands, a mason's back.
We're called to reclaim work by seeing the moments within it. The smell of wood shavings, the warmth of water, as the presence itself, not just a means to an end.
Now, as noted, we're moving past chapter 23 to chapter 24. To honor is to love.
This defines the inseparable bond. Honor is the way love takes tangible form. It's a commitment to return to what matters again and again.
It lives in quiet acts. The way we tend to memory, keep a promise, or just pause at a photograph.
And it shows an embodied respect. Your posture, facing someone fully. Small, repeated, unnoticed actions, like repairing something carefully.
We turn now to the future, starting with chapter 25, The Weight of Not Yet.
This is future memory. The future leaning into the present, felt as anticipatory loss or an intuition of change. He calls it a form of emotional knowledge.
Anticipated loss, that ache for a moment that hasn't even finished yet, is actually a sign of deep connection.
And it can sharpen your awareness of the present, prompting you to pay closer attention now.
The suggested response is honoring the present, lingering longer in a conversation, looking at a familiar room a bit longer.
Consciously preserving the moment before it inevitably shifts into memory.
Chapter 26, Legacy Without Achievement, is such a powerful counter-narrative to modern ambition.
It focuses on emotional resonance. Our deepest legacy is the way we made others feel, the quiet traces that live in another person's sense of safety or worth or belonging.
This is the intimate imprint, not public monuments, but quiet personal moments. A warm greeting, steady listening.
Which leads to embodied inheritance. Our presence shapes how people walk or speak or find courage. A living thread passed along without any fanfare.
Chapter 27 defines the shape of farewell.
He presents it as leaving as care. A shift in the shape of presence, not an erasure or a hard stop. The connection changes form, but it endures.
It encourages going beyond closure, releasing that exhausting need for a neat, resolved ending.
The body's trace remains, a shift in the shoulders near a remembered place, shared phrases resurfacing years later.
In Chapter 28, Time Beyond Us, we discuss unseen influence.
Memory begins its quiet, unpredictable journey the instant it's shared, traveling in directions we will never witness.
This demands trust and release, letting go of the pressure to control the outcome.
Memory shifts and reshapes itself to the needs of those who hold it. It's alive. The essence endures. Mala argues the tone of our presence, our steadiness, our warmth, is what travels furthest.
Finally, Chapter 29 is a note to future ghosts, an acceptance that we will one day exist as an echo in someone else's memory.
Interpreted in fragments we can't control, it serves as an open door, an invitation to reflect on the shape of what we leave behind, trusting what matters will find its way forward.
The final focus is on care. Live in a way that makes your core values, presence, kindness, resilience, unmistakable.
Rather than seeking perfection or measurable public achievement.
So now we move to the final, most personal section, which he deliberately placed at the back, the origin story of the Ghosts movement.
And this is critical because it shows the framework was forged in real-life chaos, not just meditation. He traces it back to his early life in isolation.
The youngest child in a loving, chaotic home.
Where he learned, as he puts it, to vanish gently. And notice the unspoken, giving him this literacy of silence.
He also discusses his challenge with dyslexia. Reading was a climb.
But the slowness it imposed became a teacher, fostering that literacy of silence, dwelling in the gaps and pauses.
which later became central to the concept of the dot.
And this ability to notice the gaps became a survival mechanism. In his mid-teens crisis, a deep depression, he was saved by an internal, still, silent awareness he called the Watcher,
It just witnessed his collapse without judgment.
creating a sacred boundary against total disintegration. This led to creating internal defenses, like the phrase, "go away silly thoughts,"
A self-administered lifeline.
and imagining spin worms to rework dark thoughts, acting as a mental firewall. He was learning to be the gatekeeper to his own mind.
His adulthood crisis came much later. Success led to loneliness. He moved to Portugal. The financial crash happened. His businesses failed.
A total spiritual collapse. It dismantled the old, unquestioned beliefs he didn't realize he was still standing on.
His spiritual rebuilding began in that silence. He says Richard Dawkins' The God Delusion shattered his background faith.
And the resulting space allowed Eckhart Tolle's work, The Power of Now, to enter, giving a name and shape to the presence he'd already felt as the Watcher.
He returned to the UK and started a service called It Might Never Happen, helping people downsize after loss.
And this practical work gave him the core insight. People held on to objects for the story they carried. Releasing the story was what lifted the weight, not removing the object. That was the seed of the movement.
And the movement's birth finally came when the world slowed down. He credits his wife, Crystal, for encouraging him to give it structure.
The core, he confirms, is companionship, honoring light and dark, all centered on the dot he had discovered so long ago.
Okay, now the final section, questions that often come up, which is structured as 5 practical doorways.
Doorway 1. If you are just arriving, this confirms it's for anyone curious, tired, or busy. No prerequisite knowledge needed. It's not a religion. It's a recognition of what is already here.
Doorway 2. If you are unsure what this is, this clarifies it's an orientation, not a method. It explains the word ghosts. Absence doesn't equal disappearance.
And it explains how it differs from traditional mindfulness. It keeps past and future in the field. And, importantly, there's permission not to agree with every part.
Doorway 3. If this already feels familiar, this is a welcoming doorway. It affirms that if this is how you already live, you're simply finding companions.
And it says the ideas are meant to be woven into your existing practice, not to replace it.
Doorway 4. If life feels heavy or uncertain, this is a huge one. It confirms presence is possible even while exhausted, in fragments, in noise.
It offers recognition, not repair. The advice is to start small. Notice a single sound, one conscious breath.
Doorway 5. If you are wondering how this works, this gets into operations. No special tools or spaces needed.
There's no set rhythm because absence is part of the pattern. And success isn't a grade, it's measured by noticing more and feeling an increased steadiness.
And finally, we reach the closing notes, the final summary.
It reiterates the movement's purpose, to honor what remains through quiet ritual, holding light and dark as companions, and recognizing the sacred in ordinary acts.
It briefly mentions the community space, memory circles.
And it lists the associated wider work for those who want to go deeper, the Ghost Trilogy, and the weekly reflections.
We've completed the full walkthrough of the Ghosts Manifesto. It's not a system for erasing your history.
No, it's a profound invitation to recognize your history and your future as active, living presences in your body, your place, and your day-to-day life.
It moves the conversation away from rigid control and towards a genuine, honest companionship with every single aspect of who you are.
It's a call to be honest about the fragments we carry and the breaks we won't ever perfectly fix.
And it's so empowering to realize that the dot, that deep, still ground, wasn't something we had to earn. It was already there, patiently waiting for us to notice it in the middle of all the clatter.
So what does this entire comprehensive summary leave you with? The manifesto ultimately teaches that the most powerful form of memory is not what we store or even what we receive, but what we transmit.
The quiet, emotional resonance.
Exactly. The resonance we are building right now through simple acts of attention, the way we listen, the patience we offer, the small ways we choose to honor what matters, that will eventually become the shape of our farewell, traveling far beyond our witness into the lives of others. This legacy is already in motion. What steady, quiet trace are you building now?